Next up, in theaters and on digital Friday, February 16th, is a movie called Monolith. Very easy title. It's a very easy plot. I'm going to actually sum it up in 20 seconds. A journalist, podcaster, played by Lily Sullivan. She's trying to do a podcast about a black brick. That's the story. She's in her house. She interviews some people. Things get weird. It's 95 minutes, rated R. It's considered a sci-fi thriller. Even though there are different voices through interviews and people she talks to, it's essentially a one-person show that it's directed by Matt Vesley and written by Lucy Campbell. That's it. Monolith. If you like those kind of movies, slow burn thrillers with just one person like Locke, might be for you. Might not be for you if you're expecting something more and you want things to really, this world to open up. It opens up in different sublime ways, but there's not going to be 40 people walking into that door to expand the narrative of Monolith. Bruce Berkey, start with you on your review and thoughts on the movie.
Yeah, overall, I really like this movie. I wouldn't compare it as much to Locke as I would to movies that are kind of like, you know how you have these screen movies where it's all takes place on the screen, like a computer screen. I think it's Missing. I think might be one of those
Yeah,
movies.
sure. Not Sagasu, but the other
Yeah,
Missing.
but the other one. I think it's like one of those where it's like, even though this is an audio version of that, right? The screen isn't going to be, you're not going to be seeing too much on the screen, but it's like one person and they're essentially uncovering an sort of an audio mystery slash conspiracy slash what we don't know what's going on. And it kind of also goes into the kind of the territory of like Coast to Coast. If you guys know Coast to Coast, the radio show where it's every night it's about aliens or
Art Bell, George Norrie.
yeah, ghost recordings or something like that. And but in this version, she's doing a podcast, which I think the podcast part is the weakest part of this, because the podcast idea of this is that she's releasing these podcasts as kind of a series and slowly, as she talks to different people who have encountered this brick, uncovering the mystery possibly, or expanding the mystery of this brick through her podcast. But I think where it's weak to me is that it kind of imagines a world where there's immediate response to her podcasts like they were radio breaking news broadcasts. And I don't think in the real world that there isn't just that much response to that kind of stuff. I don't think. Maybe.
No, not for
maybe
us.
yes, maybe no. I mean, yeah, not for
Not
us,
for
but
us.
I just don't experience that world as being a thing so much. There's only been a couple podcasts I can think of that were super buzzy and super like really blew up in the consciousness of people. But it doesn't matter. It's a plot device for this movie. I think what is strongest about this, definitely a number one, is the performance of Lily Sullivan. Because she carries 90% of this movie, other than whoever she's talking to. She's kind of interviewing and hunting down people that kind of unravel this mystery. And I really love the tone of this movie. It has a really slow, creepy kind of a dread to it, which I think works. I think it works really quite well. And then, of course, the other question is, does the mystery resolve in a way that's satisfying? And I think pretty much it does for me. Yeah, I think this is once again, a pretty solid indie thriller, mystery, horror, sci-fi. I'm not sure what that is in that category.
Yeah, do you think people who like podcasts, Bruce, will be predisposed to actually almost kind of liking Monolith? It might be up their alley, but you said the podcast portion was the weakest part of the narrative,
Yeah,
which
I don't think that's the audience for this. I think the audience is this is people who like ARGs or, online mysteries or these kind of created rabbit hole sites. I think that's conspiracy people, like people that love to look into those kind of things. I think that's the audience for this.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. Your thoughts, Eric?
Well, first of all, it's kind of weird that has there been a movie that really captured the idea of a podcast? Because like even Kevin Smith's movies, his later movies, he has people that Tusk, they're a podcast, and Kevin Smith does podcasts. Like he's one of the pioneers of that. He should know. And you watch the podcast in his movie, and it's like that's you're off, dude. How do you get that far off? But
Yeah.
regardless
I
of
don't know.
that, yeah, Monolith. I would say like the first. This was similar to Unwelcome for me, where I didn't like most of the movie up until the end, and then it really got me. I thought this was going to be one of those conspiracy theories, a conspiracy theorist like, oh, this, and that, and look, there's a number 3 on a dollar bill, which means if you add it to 14, the number is 17, which means this, or like, I thought it was going to go there, and then not only go there with a conspiracy theory, but hey, look, conspiracy theorist is actually right. And I really don't like movies like that because look, conspiracy theorists have enough ammo. You don't need to give them more in your movie. I thought where the end of this went kind of reined it all in a lot more without saying too much. The end is the part that really brought me back around. But up until like the third act, I was like, no, not liking this at all. But I think it finally earned everything and kind of paid off by then. So I'm glad I stuck with it. But that first 2/3 was rough getting through.
Got it. Yeah, it's slow burn. I think some people will not be on board. I was totally on board from the first second up to the ending. Loved the entire part of them. Just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very solid experience. I loved the podcasting part, and like Bruce, I thought that worked. I like the conspiracy stuff, so I was all on board. I haven't seen Lily Sullivan in Evil Dead Rise. Definitely have to see her in that. Bruce was saying that she's she's the best part of the movie. Maybe she's the one who anchors that narrative. Lily
Well, I
Sullivan,
mean,
Bruce?
that
Yeah.
movie has a lot of great parts to it, I think, and a lot of people did enjoy it. Some people hated it, but she definitely shines in that movie. Is very memorable. So put it that way.
Okay, yeah, this is a tour de force performance from Lily Sullivan, in my opinion. 4 stars from Monolith. What about you, Eric?
I'll probably go 3 stars on this. Because I like early on I was like at 1.5, 2 stars, and then it finally bumped up by the end. So I'll go 3 stars on this.
Cool. Bruce?
I will say 4 stars, and I would just say if people are listening to us and are kind of confused on where they want to fall on this, I would say if you enjoy movies like Lake Mungo or Pontypool, I think those are
Yeah.
2 movies that are great, like tonal, kind of indicators for how this movie kind of goes.
I haven't seen Lake Mongo, but Pontypool's a good shout on this.
That's one of those things where you just have to get into that vibe. And if you're not, then it's going to be a little bit of a catch as catch can experience. I think the one thing that we all agree upon is the ending of Monolith, which I think is pretty cool. Bruce, you liked it. Eric, you bumped up your rating just because of that. Well, do you guys want to know what happens in the end? Well, listen to our Cinematics Patreon because I actually asked the director, Matt Vesley, and Lily Sullivan about the end of Monolith, which can be interpreted in 2 different ways. What, you don't think it can be? Are you serious? Are you on?
I think it's pretty clear which one it is. And in fact,
Really?
I think there's a third way it can be interpreted.
Okay, fair. 2 or 3 ways that it can be interpreted. If you're like Eric and you say it's going to be one specific way, there could be arguments back and forth. Why don't you listen to Lily's argument and Matt's argument regarding the end of Monolith? That will be exclusive to our Cinematics Patreon members this coming weekend when I post that exclusive only Patreon video. So check that out for Monolith. Whether you love it or not, here's a good thing. You can purchase it on digital on Friday. If you don't like it, you can yell at me and Bruce. And if you're a Patreon member for a $5 catch-all, you can actually get some really cool stuff that the rest of the public will not get. Well, who knows? Maybe they'll get it. Maybe they'll actually talk about the ending in other outlets, but you're going to have to go digging. You have that